the secret war fought behind enemy lines during the Second World War, victory often depended not on firepower, but on silence. A sentry eliminated without a sound. A collaborator removed in the dark. A resistance fighter escaping without alerting a garrison only yards away. And out of this world of espionage, sabotage, and violence came one of the strangest yet effective guns in history, the Welrod. At first glance, it barely looks like a gun at all, more like a metal tube or perhaps a bicycle pump. But in reality, the Welrod was one of the quietest firearms ever produced, purpose-built for assassination and covert warfare, designed in total secrecy, used by agents who officially did not exist, and employed decades after the Second World War in conflicts from Northern Ireland to the Gulf War. The Welrod became a symbol of Britain's hidden war. The Welrod was created at one of the most secretive locations in wartime Britain, Station 11, the research and development arm of the Inter-Services Research Bureau, later associated closely with the Special Operations Executive, or the SOE. Station 11 was based near Welwyn Garden City in Hertfordshire, far from the front lines but at the centre of Britain's clandestine war effort. Its task was simple in concept and extraordinary in execution. Design weapons and equipment for irregular warfare, sabotage and resistance movements across occupied Europe. Everything produced at Station 11 carried the prefix Well, derived from Welling. There was the Well bike, the Well gun, the Wellman's submersible, and the Welrod, with rod borrowed from the slang word for a gun, deliberately chosen to obscure its true nature even in documentation. The man behind the Welrod was Major Hugh Reeves, a brilliant and unconventional engineer. Reeves specialised in devices that prioritised discretion over firepower, and the Welrod would become his most infamous creation. As you can probably tell, it's not a very conventional pistol, but it was designed around one principle: absolute quiet. Unlike most pistols of the time, the Welrod was not semi-automatic, but bolt action, meaning there was no loud cycling of the slide after firing. The only mechanical sound was the firing pin striking the primer, and even the bolt could be worked slowly and silently by the operator. Its integrated suppressor was revolutionary. The weapon consisted of three main sections: a rear section housing the bolt and firing mechanism, a short ported barrel that bled off propellant gases, and a large suppressor containing metal baffles and rubber wipes. The ported barrel served two purposes. It gradually vented gases into the suppressor, and it reduced bullet velocity to subsonic speeds, preventing the loud crack of a sonic boom, especially critical for the 9mm version. The rubber wipes were particularly ingenious. They had no holes, the first shots would punch through them, and the rubber would then reseal behind the bullet. Only after 10 to 15 rounds would the wipes degrade enough to reduce effectiveness. The result was astonishing. Later testing showed the Welrod produced around 122 decibels, quieter than a CO2 air pistol, and almost imperceptible beyond a few meters. Fired in contact with a target, it was described as Hollywood type of quiet. The Welrod's appearance was as deceptive as its sound. It lacked a traditional pistol grip. Instead, the magazine doubled as the grip, covered by a removable rubber sheath. With the magazine removed, the weapon just looked like a metal tube. Hence its nickname, the bicycle pump. This design allowed agents to conceal the weapon easily, smuggle it across borders, and fire it even with the magazine detached if a round was chambered. The weapon was deliberately sanitized. It bore no manufacturer's marks, no national identifiers, and only cryptic serial numbers. Even Birmingham Small Arms confirmed they added no markings at all. If captured, the Welrod could not easily be traced back to Britain. The Welrod existed primarily in two calibers. The Welrod Mark.II, which was the most widely issued version, fired the .32 ACP cartridge, whereas the Welrod Mark.I fired the 9x19mm Parabellum cartridge, more powerful but heavier with reduced magazine capacity. Ironically, the Mark.II was produced before the Mark.I. The .32 ACP version was favoured for ease of supply and controllability, while the 9mm version was developed after field reports suggesting the smaller calibre sometimes lacked stopping power. Despite its brilliance, the Welrod was not without flaws. It had a very limited effective range, a slow rate of fire due to its bolt action, and the rubber wipes degraded quickly under sustained use. But these limitations were acceptable. The Welrod was not meant for firefights. It was meant for one or two silent kills, followed by disappearance. The Welrod was primarily used by Special Operations Executive, but also by the American OSS and resistance forces across Europe. Its intending role was chillingly direct. Assassination. There were plans in 1943 to distribute Welrods widely for the mass killings of SS and Gestapo personnel within occupied Europe. These plans were likely reconsidered after Operation Anthropoid, the assassination of Reinhard Heinrich, which led to devastating German reprisals and the murder of thousands of civilians. As a result, the Welrod was often reserved for targeted eliminations, silent sentry removal, and last resort defensive use by agents and resistance fighters. Remarkably, the Welrod did not disappear with the end of World War II. It was used by US Army Special Forces in Berlin during the Cold War, by American forces during the Vietnam War, and resistance and stay-behind networks associated with Operation Gladio. Its continued use speaks volumes about its effectiveness. Even as firearms technology advanced, few weapons could match the Welrod's combination of silence, reliability, and deniability. The Welrod surfaced again during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, reportedly used by the IRA. An uncomfortable reminder that weapons designed for one secret war can easily find their way into another. And even more astonishingly, the Welrod was reportedly used by British Special Forces during Operation Desert Storm in 1991, nearly 50 years after its invention. Few firearms in history can claim such longevity in active service. Most recently, there's been a misconception that the Welrod was used in the assassination of Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare. It was not a Welrod, but a 3D printed gun, reportedly. From popular media, the gun is barely depicted in movies or film, which I think is rather strange considering how much this gun lends itself to Hollywood filmmaking. It's probably the quietest gun ever, perfect for your spy movies or your special operations movies. But in video games, the gun is depicted extremely well. The gun can be seen in games such as Medal of Honor Rising Sun, the Sniper Elite series, Insurgency Sandstorm, Battlefield 5, World of Guns, and most recently as the hairpin in Ark Raiders. Today, the Welrod is remembered as one of the most extraordinary weapons ever devised. Not because it was powerful, but because it was purpose-built for a world of shadows. It represents the ingenuity of Station 11, the moral ambiguity of covert warfare, and the lengths to which nations will go to when survival is at stake. The Welrod was never meant to be famous, it was meant to be invisible, and perhaps that is its greatest legacy, a weapon so effective that, for decades, most people never even knew it existed. And in Silent War, the Welrod only spoke once, and that was enough. I hope you enjoyed this video looking at one of the quietest and coolest pistols in history. This video was made in collaboration with the Military Intelligence Museum. The pistol I showed you today is held at the Military Intelligence Museum, so if you'd like to see it, you know where to go. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, subscribe and turn that bell notification on, share the video with your friends, and most importantly, please leave a comment letting me know which gun or video idea you'd like to see from me next. Because sometimes history doesn't need a rewrite, it just needs to be told properly.